Hey all, and welcome back to Fuzzy Dirty Gaming, and a very quick FAQs on my League starter. This video is only really going to be relevant for people that are following my build. What I thought I'd do is bring a video out going over the commonly asked questions that I'll get if people struggle at any point. I will always answer questions on YouTube as quickly as I can, but I obviously sleep, I play the game, I work, I go out at the weekend, so I'm not always available, and it might take me 8 hours to answer your question, and I don't want you sitting there for 8 hours stewing thinking you can't progress the character. So let's start with number 1. If you haven't played a melee build and are used to builds that scale with gem level, you're in for a rude awakening. Melee skills scale purely off of the damage on your weapon and your gear, and it all comes from your weapon to start with. So if you do start to see your damage fall off, check your weapon. Are you 20 levels above your weapon? If you are, it's likely you need an upgrade. Is there a craft you can do on the crafting bench to increase damage? There's lots of options, but normally if your damage starts to feel bad, it's because of your weapon. Having said that, in Act 4, you might struggle. That is going to be normal because we're taking a lot of points ready for the switch that don't do anything for our two-handed build, but it's really only that one act that you've got to struggle through. The next thing I envisage we getting asked questions is, I can't level up my strength gem and I can't level up my intelligence gem. Where do you get all these attributes from? You want to be utilizing a heavy belt, either an agate amulet, a lapis amulet, or an amber amulet. And if you need to, take the plus 30 nodes on the tree and you can always respec them later. It's not the best use of points, but it's very important that we level our auras up, because once we get towards Act 9 or 10 and you get your Ichimonjis, that's how you scale most of your damage, and you'll be doing very little damage if your Wrath is only level 4 and your Anger is only level 7. This should be one of your first trade purchases. Realistically, to get yourself to red maps, you need 2 Ichimonjis, Prism Weave belt, and then your Vile Lightning Strike and attributes. So your kind of money that you spend early on should go on something like 1 ring with strength, 1 ring with intelligence, and an agate amulet. They don't need many more stats on it, a tiny bit of life and a tiny res. They're not going to be more than 1 to 2 chaos, but they're important purchases so that you can get moving and not worry about not being able to level up your auras. Another tip for me is, if you feel your damage isn't there, make sure you're utilizing all of the ascendancy. I go champion mainly for adrenaline at league start because I love it. If you're not going to keep that buff up, there is absolutely no point playing champion. A tip for people that might not know, adrenaline has a visual effect on your character. It basically covers them in dark smoke. It's quite visible. As soon as that turns off, that means your adrenaline has gone down. It also appears in your buff bar at the top, but it can be hard to keep track of. To help this, I turn off a lot of indicators that are going to block the screen. So I turn off aura indicators. I know what auras I'm running. I don't need to be told. And I turn off flask buffs and things like that. But I make sure I always keep my top bar uncluttered so that I can always keep an eye on adrenaline. Another problem people might come across is if you don't get any life on gear, you're not going to have a lot of life at all. This tree takes about 100 to 120, which is pretty normal. I've seen lots of league start trees. This league with 70% life, because there's so many good nodes on the tree that people want to take, and they sometimes forget about life. Make sure you've got life on your gear. Don't need to preach to everyone about this. Resistances are the most important thing, because just having 15% under your resistance cap makes you take a ton more damage of that element. I'm not saying you have to be capped all the time. The way I tend to look at it is, as long as I'm res capped by the time I get to my first labyrinth, I'm okay. In Act 6, once you get your res penalty, if I'm only like 50% all res, I'm fine with that as long as I aim to get those resistances sorted in the next act. And then once I go to maps, I definitely want to be capped. However, with the tree and the bandit choice in the build, you get lots of help from resistances. We take very, very early on resistance and accuracy nodes. We're going to take Alira. You run 2 resistance rings and you're almost there for Acts 1 to 5 anyway. So I don't foresee resistances being a problem, but just make sure that you are capped. And then lastly, this is a precise technique build, which means once you take that keystone, your accuracy always has to be above your life, or you will drop a ton of damage. There should not be any people saying this build has single target issues early on because it should melt most of the content until it gets to red maps, when you might need to make an upgrade or 2. If you aren't killing stuff within seconds in white maps, there's a problem with the playstyle or your gear. Playstyle wise, your Vile Lightning Strike is mainly there as a single target boss damage dealer. You get 2 charges. There is no reason these shouldn't be up for a map boss. That's about it. I can't think of any other issues that would come up. I think honestly attributes is probably going to be the one that people might fall over if they haven't read the parts of the POB. So like I say, strength, int nodes on the tree, take them. Heavy belt, definitely. Agate amulet, helpful. And even if you have to spend a couple of chaos that you farmed in the campaign or in heist to get more attributes, do it. It's going to be well worthwhile. One more important point is, what do you do if you're very quickly through the campaign and into heist, you want to buy Ichimonjis and they're 10C? Even though these items give us more damage, if you get your 5 link and get your SC set up, you're still going to be able to push into yellow maps really, really easily. So just carry on, follow the same tree. The only thing you wouldn't do is drop the mastery where you're dual wielding 2 different weapons. And then you just go on trade, try and find a 1C or 2C sword and axe that will just see you through to late yellow maps. These will plummet in price. The reason for the 8.4 is because I brought this build out last league as well. It was quite popular. Lots of people played it, so everyone was trying to buy these swords on day one. But they are super, super common. They are the same rarity as Quill Rain. So yes, it might be that if you're one of the first to want one, you might have to pay 10C for these. From what I remember, I got to heist and got my swords within 5 hours. And I think I paid 6C for one and 8C for the other. But currency is really easy to farm in heist. I wouldn't pay any more than 10C for these, if I'm honest, because they are a 1C unique. If you do get to heist and they're 15 to 20C, just wait. Go and get some cheap one-handed sword and axes. Play your way through and then check every couple of hours. These things will plummet in price because they are so common. Even if 20% of the player base played my build, which they won't, these items will still be cheap. Same thing goes for Perseverance. That I do think is going to be in more demand than normal, but again, it's fairly common. And we don't equip it till we get to level 78. So the likelihood is, if you're not someone who rushes and gets through really quickly, by the time you get to level 78, the belt's going to be 5C, which at that stage is nothing. That's it for the video. Thank you very much for watching. Take care and see you in the next one.